What if I told you there's a cloth that holds the image of a man, scourged, pierced, crowned with thorns, and that it might be 2,000 years old? A cloth science tried to dismiss, but couldn't explain. Welcome to one of the most controversial relics in human history, the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin is more than just an old piece of fabric. It's a burial cloth that bears the faint but haunting image of a man who appears to have been brutally scourged, crowned with thorns, crucified, and pierced in the side. For centuries, this mysterious linen has fascinated believers, scientists, and skeptics alike. In this video, I'll take you through the latest scientific findings that challenge everything we thought we knew. We'll explore evidence from 3D imaging, bloodstain pattern analysis, pollen grains from ancient regions, and a surprising re-evaluation of the carbon dating once used to dismiss the shroud as a medieval forgery. You'll also hear key moments from the most watched documentaries and witness testimony from experts who once gave up on the shroud, only to return with groundbreaking revelations. Back in 1988, carbon-14 dating results shocked the world by dating the shroud to the 1300s. That verdict led many to dismiss it as a clever hoax from the Middle Ages. But fast forward to 2022, and that narrative began to unravel. A peer-reviewed journal article published in Heritage introduced a brand new dating method. This advanced technique suggested the cloth's age to be approximately 2,020 years, with a margin of error of less than a century. In other words, the new data lines up eerily well with the era of Jesus of Nazareth. But there's more. Another peer-reviewed study came from a respected member of the original Shroud of Turin research project. He had once walked away from the controversy, frustrated by wild theories. But one phone call changed everything. He recalls, "I had given up on the shroud, and then Ray called me. He said, 'This is nonsense. I can disprove it in 5 minutes.' So I thought, fine, let's see. I pulled out both the original and the radiocarbon samples, and what I found shocked me. He discovered that the sample used for the original carbon dating wasn't representative of the whole cloth. In fact, it had likely been taken from a patch that had been rewoven during medieval repairs, blending older original fabric with newer dyed threads. This invisible reweaving threw off the carbon dating completely. With this in mind, the researcher recalculated the age of the cloth, concluding it was anywhere from 1,300 to 3,000 years old. A massive range, yes, but one that definitely includes the 1st century. His findings didn't stand alone. They were later confirmed by John Brown from Georgia Tech and Bob Viller from Los Alamos National Laboratory, both highly credible scientific institutions. Even so, many critics still point to Wikipedia or outdated sources to refute these findings. But if you read those sources carefully, even they admit the 1988 date might be incorrect. Another peer-reviewed article, published in October 2019, dug into the raw data from the 1988 tests and found inconsistencies that directly called for a new dating process. Even Archaeometry, the same Oxford journal that had published the original 1988 results, later admitted that its previous conclusion can no longer be sustained. And there's another fascinating angle. In March 2019, scientists attempted to reproduce the Shroud of Turin using modern technology. Despite their best efforts, the team concluded that a perfect replica was impossible. None of the known methods, whether artistic or chemical, could fully capture the depth, precision, and mysterious qualities of the original image. This wasn't the first attempt either. Back in 2012, a similar reproduction experiment was conducted, and once again, the technology fell short. Even with high-powered light sources and sophisticated equipment, the enigmatic image on the shroud refused to be recreated. It's as if the cloth defies time and explanation, and this is just the beginning. We explored how science still struggles to explain the Shroud of Turin, from failed carbon dating to the baffling impossibility of reproducing its image. But what kind of power would it actually take to create such an imprint? Let's take a moment to visualize this. Imagine standing inside the Dallas Cowboys stadium with every light turned on. That colossal amount of energy consumes around 750 megawatts. Yet, according to Dr. Paolo Di Lazzaro, who led a groundbreaking 2012 study on the shroud, even that wouldn't come close. In an interview with National Geographic, Dr. Lazzaro revealed that several billion watts of energy would have been required to generate the image found on the Shroud of Turin. Not only is that far beyond the output of the stadium, but that amount of power would also need to radiate from a dead body. Sounds impossible, right? And yet, that's the point. No mere human being could emit such staggering power. But Jesus, the God-man, could. Just as he radiated divine light during the Transfiguration, it's entirely possible for those who believe that an even greater illumination occurred at the moment of the resurrection, captured forever on this sacred cloth. To put it in perspective, creating the same image today would take more than 10,000 high-powered lasers, far beyond the maximum strength of all ultraviolet light sources available to science today. That simple fact says everything. We still do not have the technology to recreate the shroud. So next Easter, when you reflect on the resurrection, picture not just a quiet moment in a tomb, but a burst of divine light so intense, so powerful, that it seared a lasting image onto cloth. That's what the shroud suggests. Now you might be wondering, if it's just a piece of fabric, why can't we replicate it completely? That brings us to another extraordinary aspect: the three-dimensional nature of the image. Yes, the image on the Shroud of Turin isn't flat like a painting. It encodes precise three-dimensional data. Fabrics don't do that. Yet, from this seemingly two-dimensional cloth, researchers were able to extract 3D information that revealed facial features, depth, and even body contours. This revelation sparked the formation of the Shroud of Turin Research Project, STURP, the most comprehensive investigation of the cloth to date. A team of 33 experts from various disciplines spent 17 months preparing for the study. Their work involved testing dozens of image-making methods, from painting and scorching to radiation. Yet none of them produced an image with the same 3D characteristics found on the shroud. So far, the mystery stands. In fact, the data collected by STURP allowed modern experts to reconstruct the face of Christ using the encoded image. The History Channel even modeled it for television, and another team created a hyper-realistic replica of the entire body over the course of 15 painstaking years. The results are both stunning and humbling, but there's even more evidence tying this relic to the life and death of Jesus. Consider this. The bloodstains on the shroud match those found on another holy artifact, the Sudarium of Oviedo. This cloth, believed to have covered Jesus' head, is mentioned in John 20, verse 7. A detailed study compared blood patterns, as well as calcium and strontium deposits, on both the Sudarium and the shroud. The results strongly suggest that both cloths were used on the same person. And if that wasn't enough, there's another powerful indicator: medical accuracy. Mot tronkach bak sifhap itujoy sturp janko mot kwan sat jang kin ngach. Vagyo jai chung tajen voi motso bang chung ksach tukman men hatu truox jen ne. As we've seen, the Shroud of Turin isn't just a relic. It's a forensic masterpiece. And now, we come to some of the most powerful confirmations yet. On the right side of the chest, there's a distinct bloodstain that aligns with the 5th and 6th ribs, right where a Roman lance would have pierced the body. This mark reveals a clear separation between blood and a watery fluid. Sound familiar? In the Gospel of John, it's written that when Jesus was pierced, blood and water flowed out. Here, on the shroud, medical experts confirm this with striking precision. One examiner even wrote, "The author cannot help but comment that a remarkable consistency exists between the Gospel accounts and the forensic pathological findings depicted on the Shroud of Turin." That's not just poetic, that's science and scripture speaking in harmony. And there's more. Father Andrew Dalton shares another remarkable discovery. When you map out the scourge marks on the shroud, a pattern emerges. By drawing circles around the wounds, it becomes clear that 2 men were whipping the body, one on either side, pivoting around a fixed point. The angle of the blows shifts from the feet to the head, forming arcs. One arc is wider than the other, likely because one of the executioners was taller. Now ask yourself, would a forger in the 1200s really think to embed directionality, angle, and anatomical accuracy into the wound patterns, just in case someone discovered it 700 years later? Highly unlikely. The 6th reason that supports authenticity is the pollen analysis. During the 1978 Stirp investigation, Max Frey collected dust samples from the shroud using adhesive tapes. He compared 58 different pollen grains with samples from the world's top botanical museums. The result? A majority of the pollen came from the Jerusalem region. Then there's the crown of thorns. Art through the centuries has often shown a neat, circular band. But the shroud shows something far more painful. Around 50 puncture wounds scattered across the scalp, suggesting a helmet-like crown pressed violently onto the head. The bleeding would have been intense, a detail overlooked by most artists but not by the shroud. We also see that the nail wounds aren't in the palms, as traditionally depicted in Christian art, but in the wrists, a spot anatomically strong enough to bear a man's weight during crucifixion. As Dr. Zugube explained, if the nails had been driven into the center of the palms, the body would have torn away in minutes. The wrists were the only option that could hold. Again, ask yourself, would a medieval artist, without medical training, know this? The 8th reason is particularly extraordinary. The blood on the shroud is type AB. This is the same blood type found on the Sudarium of Oviedo and, remarkably, the same type identified in every documented Eucharistic miracle to date. When I read that, I thought, wow, God, you are brilliant. So what does this all mean? It means that faith and science are not enemies. In fact, they often illuminate each other. We wouldn't have all this astonishing evidence without scientific inquiry. And yet science cannot deny the mystery, a mystery that continues to deepen our faith and awe. Before we wrap up, let me address one final concern some viewers have mentioned. The idea that the shroud might be idolized, or that it somehow violates the 2nd commandment. Dr. Jeremiah Johnston, a respected Baptist scholar, addresses this beautifully. In all his years of shroud research, he says he's never seen anyone worship it. Instead, people pray near it, not to it. They see it as a reflection of Christ, not a replacement. A reminder that points them toward the gospel, not away from it. So whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or somewhere in between, I invite you to keep exploring. If this video moved you, helped you, or taught you something new, please give it a like, share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more thoughtful, faith-filled content like this to people around the world. Got questions? Drop them in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts. And finally, God bless you, and may the light of truth continue to lead you forward. Watch next. Can the Shroud of Turin survive modern science? Subscribe for more content like this. Share this video and help spread the truth.